One in Million എന്ന തികച്ചും വ്യത്യസ്തമായ ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാമിലേക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും സ്വാഗതം. നല്ലൊരു ജോലി നേടുക എന്നത് എല്ലാവരുടെയും സ്വപ്നമാണ്. എന്നാൽ അതിനൊരു ക്രെഡിബിലിറ്റിയും ഉണ്ടാകുകയും വേണം. ഓരോ വർഷവും വർദ്ധിച്ചു വരുന്ന സിവിൽ സർവീസ് അപേക്ഷകരുടെ എണ്ണം ഇതാണ് സൂചിപ്പിക്കുന്നത്. സിവിൽ സർവീസ് എക്സാം 3 ഘട്ടങ്ങളിലാണ് നടക്കുന്നത്. ആദ്യം പ്രിലിംസ് എക്സാം, പിന്നെ മെയിൻ എക്സാം, പിന്നെ ഫൈനൽ ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂ. ഈ വർഷത്തെ ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂവിന് സെലക്ഷൻ കിട്ടിയവർക്കായി അമൃത സിവിൽ സർവീസ് അക്കാഡമിയും അമൃത ടിവിയും സംയുക്തമായി അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്ന UPSC മോഡൽ ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂ ആണ് One in Million എന്ന ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാം. മെയിൻസ് എക്സാം കഴിഞ്ഞ് ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂവിന് തയ്യാറെടുക്കുന്ന ഒരുപാട് ആസ്പിരൻസ് ആണ് ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാമിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നത്. ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂവിന് തയ്യാറെടുക്കുന്ന എല്ലാ ആസ്പിരൻസിനും ആശംസകൾ നേർന്നുകൊണ്ട് once again welcome to One in Million. UPSC മോഡൽ ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂ പ്രോഗ്രാമായ One in Millionലെ ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂ പാനൽ മെമ്പേഴ്സ് ഇവരൊക്കെയാണ്.
വിനയ് ശങ്കർ IAS, സെക്രട്ടറി ടു ഗവൺമെന്റ് ഓഫ് ഇന്ത്യ, റിട്ടയർഡ് IAS ഓഫീസർ, മധ്യപ്രദേശ് കേഡർ. ഡോക്ടർ B. അശോക് കുമാർ IAS, സെക്രട്ടറി ടു ലോക്കൽ സെൽഫ് ഗവൺമെന്റ് ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ് ഓഫ് കേരള. പ്രശാന്ത് നായർ IAS, പ്രൈവറ്റ് സെക്രട്ടറി ടു കേരള മിനിസ്റ്റർ ഓഫ് ടൂറിസം.
ഡോക്ടർ അരുൺ B. നായർ, അസോസിയേറ്റ് പ്രൊഫസർ, ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ് ഓഫ് സൈക്യാട്രി, മെഡിക്കൽ കോളേജ് ട്രിവാൻഡ്രം. പ്രൊഫസർ K. ഗോപാലകൃഷ്ണൻ, ചെയർമാൻ, ഫാക്കൽറ്റി, അമൃത സിവിൽ സർവീസ് അക്കാഡമി.
എൻ്റെ പേര് ദേവകി നിരഞ്ജന. എൻ്റെ വീട് വയനാട്ടിലാണ്. ഞാൻ പഠിച്ചതൊക്കെ വയനാട്ടിൽ തന്നെയാണ് 10ാം ക്ലാസ് വരെ. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞ് 11th and 12th തൃശ്ശൂർ. പിന്നെ ഞാൻ LLB ആണ് ചെയ്തത്. അത് മൈസൂർ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ നിന്ന് 5 years LLB. വീട്ടിൽ അച്ഛനും അമ്മയും ഞാനുമാണുള്ളത്. അച്ഛൻ റിട്ടയർഡ് ഗവൺമെൻറ് സർവൻ്റ് ആണ്, പഞ്ചായത്ത് ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെൻറ്റിൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യായിരുന്നു. അമ്മ ഹോമിയോപ്പതി പ്രാക്ടീസ് ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഷീസ് എ ഡോക്ടർ.
You seem to be a very confident girl. So what do you think is your positivity? എന്താണ് ഒരു പോസിറ്റീവ് ക്വാളിറ്റി നിരഞ്ജനയിൽ?
Well, if I have to, I wouldn't say I have many, but I think if I have to pick one, it would be perseverance. Because civil services is one thing that you cannot get overnight, and
right.
you will have to work towards it. You will have to take it one day at a time. You'll have to meet with failure at some point of it. If you're a regular person like me, so then you will have to be persevering if you have to move forward.
Right. So how was your preparation then? എങ്ങനെയായിരുന്നു preparation? Like എവിടെയെങ്കിലും പഠിക്കുന്നതിൻ്റെ കൂടെ അതിൻ്റെ കൂടെ പഠനം തുടങ്ങിയോ for civil service, or then complete ആയിട്ട് you cut off from the world and then you were sitting and studying? എങ്ങനെയായിരുന്നു?
Well, like I said, I started preparing for civil services a long time after college.
Okay.
So almost a year and a half later.
Okay.
So there was no question of, this was not a dream or a childhood passion or anything.
Okay.
And yes, for a point, I must admit that I was cut off from the world. And you have to, by the time you get your moorings right, you will be a little, you would miss a lot of weddings probably of your friends and family functions. These are the sacrifices that you have to make. But then all in general, I think I made a lot of new friends as well from civil service preparation from
So
here.
this is your first attempt?
No ma'am, this is my 4th attempt. This is my second mains and my first interview.
First interview. Okay, so all the very best. ഇവിടുത്തെ ഇന്റർവ്യൂവിന് നന്നായിട്ട് പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റട്ടെ. Be this confident in front of the panel also. All the very best.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Please introduce yourself briefly.
So my name is Devaki Niranjana. I'm by qualification I'm a law graduate. I'm from Wayanad. It's a district in Kerala, and I've been preparing for civil services for the past 4 years, and this is my first interview, sir.
You have been trying for the civil services for the ever since you got your law degree, isn't it?
There was a little bit of a break in between, sir. Right after my law degree, I was trying to secure an admission for my LLM, and unfortunately that did not work out. And it was only after that I turned into civil services.
You didn't try to get do any job in a company, law firm, or on your own?
So that was an option, but I did not pursue that. I wanted to get into service, sir, and
you wanted to get into service. Which side of law interests you more? Because you have done 5-year course of law.
Yes, sir, yes. So if I have to pick one, I think the constitutional law is the most amusing of all. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in it, but I
You are
think
good at constitutional law.
I wouldn't make a claim, sir, but I have a huge respect for constitutional law and law of torts and
Law of torts.
yes, sir.
So, what is the status of law of torts in our country?
So law of torts, in practical, there is not a huge practical application for the law of torts in our country. So it deals with civil wrongs, and we have actually made a landmark decision drawing its inspiration from the law of torts when it came to the principle of absolute liability when during the oleum gas case. So that we have drawn inspiration is what I would say, because in the law of torts there was a concept called strict liability, and when strict liability could not be applied to the socio-economic conditions of India, we altered it and we adopted the principle of absolute liability. So in that sense it's a huge impact, but directly I would say not so much, sir.
The Bhopal gas tragedy occurred.
Yes.
Was this law invoked?
No, sir. It was precisely to get over the disability of Bhopal gas tragedy case that we implemented the strict, the absolute liability in the oleum gas leak case, which happened subsequently. In the Bhopal gas tragedy case, we did not have this principle, and that's exactly why a lot of people were not given justice.
Bhopal gas tragedy victims many of them have been denied justice?
I believe so, sir, because the company could take, the principle of law says that if it is a strict liability, then there are certain exemptions that come with it. If you can prove that the tragedy happened because of the action of a third party, or if you can prove that the tragedy happened not because of your negligence per se, then you can take an exemption. And when you equate that with a socio-economic reality, it's a huge company versus a lot of poor people. So in a court of law, they were denied justice, and then our judiciary made sure that such a thing does not repeat in the future. And because of that reason, they said that even if somebody is not negligent, if a tragedy of this scale happens, if something dangerous like this is escaping and if it causes damage, then whoever is responsible for it, despite them having or having not done negligence, should be liable for it.
So, while establishing new nuclear plants,
yes,
what are the precautions taken?
Well, sir, I'm not exactly aware of the legal provisions, but we are trying to make sure that if somebody is investing in our nuclear plants, the supplier should also be liable. And that is exactly why there is a friction, sir, because they would not want to be liable beyond a point, because it's a multi-million lawsuit. But we are trying to pressurize to make sure that the supplier is as accountable as the person who is in the last end of the scale.
You are aspiring to be an IAS officer with
Yes,
a
sir.
legal background.
Yes, sir.
Now, as a student of the fundamental rights enjoyed,
Yes,
if I
sir.
say that your right to speech
Yes.
is curtailed as a member of civil services, would you agree, and to what extent?
Sir, I would be inclined not to agree with the fact that if I'm a civil servant, my right to speech will be curtailed. That is because I absolutely agree with the fact that the right to freedom of speech and expression is fundamental.
Rule 7 of your conduct rule says that you cannot criticize the government, even if the government is wrong in its
Yes.
policy.
Yes, sir. Sir, I would want to believe that that is for the administrative efficiency. It's the same case with armed forces as well, if we have to draw parallel. The armed forces people, they are citizens too, but beyond citizens, they have a duty of, the utmost duty of security to the country. And because of that, this right is curtailed, but I wouldn't say that this right is denied, because you have other redressal measures that you can approach.
What are the conditions in which the government or anybody can curtail the right to speech
Yes, sir.
in 1901?
So, as per our constitution, there are certain grounds for restricting freedom of speech and expression, and some of them are in the interest of sovereignty, in the interest of integrity, in the interest of the security of a nation, in the interest of the friendly relationships with other countries, in the interest of public order, decency, morality, contempt of court, incitement of an offense, and defamation, sir.
You have listed all the provisos of 1902.
Yes, sir.
Then I am saying that if you are respecting 1902, subject to 1902, a civil servant has a right to criticize the government's policy as an individual. How would you respond to it? Or in other words, you cannot have a service rule which curtails 19(2)
Yes, sir.
as a piece of subordinate legislation.
Yes, sir. So that is one way of looking at it, but I would want to believe that we should look at the administration as a whole, because 19 clause 2 are reasonable restrictions and we have recourse to the court of law. But
That 19(2) is not, it is not
Available.
blanket on all or any of government's actions.
yes, sir.
That would presume that the government is always right.
Well, sir, if we have to draw the parallel here again, when the chief whip says that when it comes to defection, we have a rule that you have to follow the rule of the chief whip. That is also where your dissent is not really registered. But I would want to say that that is an entirely different situation when it comes to the administration, because we are seeing the administration as a monolith, and I'm sure that I'm not aware of the exact procedures, but I believe that a civil servant who wants to register his dissent will have a recourse of it outside the purview of our judiciary within the administration itself. I do not believe that our administration is blanketly not allowing the civil servants to register their dissent, sir.
Okay, we'll leave it there. You have adequately explored that issue. To your mind, what are the other major constitutional provisions
Yes.
dealing with services in India in the Constitution? According to you, what are the major 3-4 provisions which control or provide for services of the union and the states?
Sir, I think the Panchayat, the 73rd and 74th.
Forget 73rd and 74th.
Okay, sir.
The core provisions of services. What are the provisions? Our Constitution is very special that it
Yes,
talks,
sir.
it gives an entire chapter on
Yes, sir.
services of the union and the states. What are the key provisions? Is the IAS a constitutional instrument? Does the Constitution talk about or prescribe the IAS to the nation?
Sir, I think it
Can
does.
you abolish the IAS without a constitutional amendment?
So I believe you cannot. It's an all India service, and
All day service can be done. You can raise an all day service
Through
by
the-
following a procedure, but
yes, sir.
can you abolish the IAS without amending the Constitution?
So I'm not aware of
Okay,
the procedure.
forget it. What according to you are the other major provisions which provide for various features of India's civil service system? You must have heard of the Union Public Service Commission, to which you have
Oh,
made an
yes, sir.
application.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
most definitely. sir.
What is that commission about?
So the UPSC recruits civil servants. It
Yeah.
conducts the examination, and
Is it a
recommends-
constitutional body?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many members? And what is the general constitution of the commission?
So unfortunately,
You're
I'm
not,
not
yeah.
able to recollect the facts.
Right. What about the services of the state? Who recruits the services of the state?
So the State Public Service Commission.
Public service commissions.
Yes.
Right. What is the idea of pleasure appointment in government? If I say that when you are appointed to the IAS, you will be serving at the pleasure of the President of India.
Yes.
What is that concept about?
So to my understanding, it means that the way of appointment and the way of removal are not always a parallel. Like you can be appointed by a body, but sometimes you can be dismissed only at the pleasure of the President. For example, I believe the Attorney General of India, he can only be dismissed at the pleasure, only as long as he's
Can you, I think you know the concept of a pleasure appointment, but
Yes,
can
sir.
you tell me a set of appointments under the Constitution which cannot be even removed by the appointing authority? Let us say the President appoints a set of appointees, but the President has no power to remove them.
So I believe the prime example would be the judiciary.
Yeah.
You cannot remove the judge. That is to assure the independence of the judiciary, which is a basic feature of a constitution. So the judges are appointed by the President, but they can only be removed under really stringent conditions such as misbehavior, and I am not able to recollect.
What is
exact-
that process called?
Impeachment.
How do you remove the President? Suppose he is proven to have engaged in misconduct or
Violation of the Constitution.
or conditions extend on holding the position.
So, if my memory serves me right, both the houses of the Parliament need to pass a special majority, and there has to be an inquiry before that. There has to be a notice of 14 days period before which he can be removed. And this all starts, there is a very difficult procedure that has to be followed, and unless there is a legislative sanction, and that too not a simple majority, it's a special majority of 2/3 of members present and voting. And after the inquiry commission's report, which suggests that they hold the President accountable, and if that is passed, and then the other house has to concur with it, and if both the houses concur, then the president stands impeached, sir.
Thank you.
You were discussing about the right of a civil servant to write or express himself.
Yes, sir.
Take the case of Facebook, for instance. In your state, there have been lots of instances where the government has issued certain orders
Yes, sir.
restricting the right of the officer
Yes.
or the civil servant or a government servant to write anything on the Facebook. Is it legally right?
Sir, I think when it comes to Facebook, it is an electronic medium, and we had the Ira Singhal case, which said that the Section 66A of the IT Act, whereby the dissent should not be a reason to stop people from expressing themselves. So I believe, sir, it is not illegal. You can express yourself, but I also think that there is an issue of heckler's veto when it comes to expressing in social media. People try to try to give a momentum for an opinion, and so for example, in the recent Padmavati issue and a couple of other things where the social media was widely used to propagate a particular view. I think the people can take it beyond the point of.
I am asking about the legal position.
Yes, I think it is legal, but definitely
legal.
subjected to reasonable restrictions, sir. It's not an unrestricted, unfettered right.
The government issuing an order saying that you are restrained from expressing yourself on Facebook on account of being on my role. You are on the role of the government, so you are restricted from expressing yourself on Facebook. Is that legally correct?
I do not think so, sir. I do not think that the government is supposed to tell the citizens what, how, or in which way they should accept or to approve or dissent with the government stand.
So going along the same way, Facebook is just another medium.
Yes, sir.
Writing a book or writing an article is quite similar.
Yes, sir.
So why should the conduct rule, which again is a government order, it's a subordinate legislation.
Yes, sir.
Why does the conduct rule stand in any way different? How can any government tell its employees that you should not express anything against the government?
Oh, I'm really sorry, sir. I'm just getting your question. I thought it was to the public. I believe you are saying that to the government employees.
To the government employee. To the government
Okay, so I'm really sorry that I misunderstood your question. Sir, again, I think this is. I wouldn't give a blanket answer as to whether it is yes or no. I think in the interest of the efficiency of administration, the government should have certain rights to tell how because every employee is a spokesperson of the government. So if there is a dissent, I think it should be internally settled first.
No, but under what rule? What rule, what law?
I'm unable to recollect the exact rule or the law.
Can the government issue executive orders to restrain the free speech of any citizen? Be it employee or anyone?
Sir, I do not think so. The government can definitely issue an order, but I think if somebody challenges it with the judiciary, it would not stand the touchstone of.
See, you're telling that you can issue illegal orders.
Sentence, I'll give a classic illustration.
Yes, sir.
4 judges of the Supreme Court come out and tell the press that the administration of the Supreme Court is not in order. It's a very heavy statement to make.
Yes,
okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Same thing, one of your prospective colleagues make a statement in a state that the law and order in the state has broken down. B is acted upon, the judges are sort of viewed as saviors of the institution.
Yeah.
Yes,
They are both citizens of India. How do you deal with this contradiction?
The fundamental question boils down to just this much. Do the government servants, the civil servants, enjoy fundamental rights in any less manner, in any lesser degree? If so, under what act, under what provision of the Constitution? Is there anything like that? Or is all this wrong?
Sir,
And by the same logic,
Yes.
can a civil servant be an activist or not?
Yeah.
so it's a very
Openly.
So it's a very interesting prospect, and I have not actually thought about it. Is the truth?
No, Article 311 provides for civil services, but then any sort of control is again coming through only 19.2.
Yes.
So the 19.2 conditions alone should come. So how
Okay.
does anything else come in?
Okay. So the final thing is, like, if I understand it correctly, the civil servants are also treated as citizens.
Isn't it? We are asking
Yes.
you.
Yes, sir.
Are we in doubt there?
No, sir. I thought, I was trying to recollect if there was a particular law with respect to that, but I believe that the logic definitely applies, and most definitely the civil servant should be restricted under only 19 clause 2 and not under.
But I would request you to consider
Yes, sir.
the Contract Act. When the civil servant joins the government, does he enter into a contract with the government or not? And what are the conditions of contract that are entered between the civil servant and the state or the government when he joins the service?
Sir, I'm sure that there will be a civil contract between the civil servant and the government, because like any other employment, this is the public employment also will ensure that the civil servant is committed to certain expectations. I'm not aware of what exactly are the provisions of the contract. I've never.
But suppose in the contract there are certain conditions that are put across saying that your speech, your right to speech is curtailed. Will it be legally valid?
So
Because you know Article 13, under Article 13, what does it say?
So any act, any statute which is in contradiction to
Any
the fundamental
statute,
right
any rule,
does
any
not
law,
stand.
anything
valid.
which the state undertakes
Yes.
has to stand
The test of the fundamental
fundamental
rights.
rights,
Yes, sir.
under which again 19(1) comes.
Yes, sir. So if I may draw a parallel, like a person can enter into a contract with somebody to be a bonded laborer as well. Maybe out of my circumstance, I could sign it, but it won't stand the test of a judiciary. It stands violative. So I think a contract can be, to answer your question, sir, a contract can be entered to, but will it stand the test of the judiciary? I absolutely believe it won't.
Okay, what's your idea of, do you support live streaming of judicial proceedings?
So I think not for all cases, but live streaming of judiciary can definitely be one avenue. I do not think that if it involves a woman or if it involves a yes, sir, any kind of if it involves the modesty of a woman, it should not. But in other cases, I think it can be part of digitalizing. It can be part of ensuring transparency. And I think most importantly, as a law graduate, I have not practiced law, but I have seen that the general public has a hesitation to approach judiciary, just like the police stations. They have an inhibition. So I think live streaming can definitely allay their fears. It can increase the confidence. It can.
Right. When we were discussing law of tort.
Yes, sir.
You said that it doesn't have much application in India.
Yes,
and you
sir.
referred to just 2 cases, really hi-fi cases, which involved huge compensation. And again, which were of the nature of industrial accident. But you know, tort is something that happens in day-to-day life.
Yes, sir.
Why shouldn't it be having much importance in India? Why can't it have?
Yes, sir. That's a very valid question, sir. I think I was trying to say that the law of torts, when we studied in college, it was mostly referring to the common law, and it didn't have an extension.
We follow common law, isn't it?
Yes, sir. We do subscribe to the common law, but it did not have many case laws regarding the Indian cases. But you're absolutely right in saying that it has a wider ambit when it comes to the Indian judiciary, and we have the especially in the environmental law and everything.
Not just environment.
Yes,
could be between 2 people as well, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
It's just that we don't
We
fight
don't
out that kind of cases here,
Yes, sir.
unlike the US,
True, sir.
isn't it? Okay, should we be punishing adultery?
So, as a woman and as a citizen, I think that adultery should not be punished, and the current stand whereby the woman is not punished, that is not right again, sir. I think it is a matter of something that happens in the personal space of 2 individuals. If they need recourse with the law, that should be provided in a civil court. But right now it is a criminal case, and especially there is a gender disparity in it as well, whereby the husband is allowed to treat his wife as property. If you look at it, there is an irony to that the woman is not punished. But then that is a classic example, I believe, of benevolent patriarchy, sir, whereby if I am the woman, I am not punished not because I am not guilty, but because I am not even treated as an individual who has an opinion. I am treated as the property of my husband, who has the right to go and complain with the judiciary. That
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Recently, the government decided to ban certain advertisements of junk foods on kids channels.
Yes.
You agree with that? It's a good thing?
So the intention is noble. We are trying to, we have the problem. India is a country that has a problem of
No, is it legally good? Legally correct? Will it stand the test of law?
There has been, I cannot recollect the exact case law, but there has been a case law that says that an advertisement is also covered under the freedom of speech and expression. I think it's the Tata Yellow Pages case.
Obviously, it must be.
Yes. So, but in the interest of public order and health, sir, we have a particular clause in the reasonable restrictions to that. So, in the
Is
interest
health
of health,
mentioned in 19.1, 19.2?
public order, decency and morality, health, I do not think health is mentioned in 19 clause
So?
2, sir.
Can the state of evolution of society or standards or beliefs of society be totally ignored while interpreting the constitutional provisions of reasonable restrictions, or it should be completely divorced?
So, I think ideally it should not be divorced. Ideally it should be harmonious, but unfortunately it is difficult to find harmony between customs always and with respect to rights. So, it depends on case to case, from case to case, sir.
So, in which case do you think the societal views have been taken into consideration in accepting reasonableness of restrictions?
So, I think in case of the Shabarimala temple entry case, there has been a question of whether the customs of the society should be placed precedence over the right to equality. So, that is one case that is still going on, or even the Jallikattu case, whereby the custom versus the rights to the rights of animals. There is a tussle between them, sir. So, like I said, ideally they should go hand in hand, but that's not the reality. And from case to case, we have to see and we have to look into the larger public interest when it comes to deciding on its merits.
That means once the Board of Film Censors
Yes, sir.
has cleared a certain film for public release, then the right to object stands withdrawn, or does it not? Say exhibition of Padmavat film, the Board of Censors cleared it.
Yes, sir.
Still some governments are sort of dragging the feet.
Yes, sir. I'm not entirely sure of the legal provisions, sir, but then what the makers of the film did was approach the Supreme Court and obtain a stay and then release it nationwide. So, I think they can pass such orders, but will it stand in the court of law? I think by example, no.
Do you defend free speech by allowing the movie to be released or risk 5 or 6 casualties in the process? What is your choice?
Sir,
After the Supreme Court, everybody has pronounced, movie is opening in your subdivision. You are the officer.
Yes, sir.
And few people are protesting there, and it could lead to a police firing in the evening. So, will you invoke 144 and still stop the release, or would you face the situation? Free speech or law and order?
So, it's a very, very difficult choice to make. But
You can choose not to answer. My turn is over. In fact, others should question.
See, so you can take this as a cooling off question. You know?
yes, sir.
What would be the value addition that you would bring to the services as a lawyer yourself?
So, I think this is a more difficult question than
Or will
The
it be a
rest.
disadvantage or an advantage? Because you will start examining every issue from a legal point of view.
Well, sir, I think it would be advantageous because we have, if I have to look into the larger picture, there is executive and legislature, and if I have to look into the microscopic version of it, then you know the law and you are part of the executive, and we have a separation of power as well as checks and balances. So I think it will be a beautiful harmony if you can look at it in the right perspective, sir.
And ultimately, public administration is implementation of law.
Exactly, sir.
So, better knowledge of law should be helping you.
Most definitely, sir.
Now, hearing the other questions, you know, quite complicated ones asked to you,
Yes, sir.
and the kind of answers, good answers that you gave them, I have a suspicion that the law is not updating itself to suit the modern day complications. So, do you subscribe to that view? Do we have enough laws to address the complex problems that the society faces today?
So, to answer your question, I think it is a work in progress. The judiciary is making that we still have the remnants and the vestiges of some colonial laws, like say 377, which the judiciary overruled a high court's progressive judgment. So I think it's a work in progress, but then the judiciary is doing commendable job when it comes to expanding the scope of private rights. So I think
Okay, that's good. Then when we talk about right to life,
yes, sir.
there is a very, very important expression that is attached to right to life, sense of dignity.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, do you think that the average Indian today can sustain or retain his sense of dignity wherever he goes? Say, for example, he goes to a public office or he goes to get a grievance redressed. Do you think this sense of dignity is can be maintained? There was a recent case of a couple asking for mercy killing.
Yes, sir.
Now, what is your stand about this sense of dignity? If right to life is mixed with or blended with a sense of dignity, is it always possible? Is it always maintained?
So I think it goes hand in hand, right to life. At the Constitution assures that the right to life does not come as a mere animal existence. It comes along with the right to live your life with a dignified life. And to answer your question in the context of euthanasia, in the context of mercy killing, I do support that the current stance. We support passive euthanasia, and we do not support active euthanasia. And that is the classic example of extending the right to dignity, live your life dignity, and to end it in a dignified manner. I am not sure if that has been extended to all circumstances, but that is a place that we hope to achieve one day.
Okay. People say that ignorance of law is not an excuse to commit a crime. But do you think that education in all our schools and colleges, there should be some kind of an education concerning law? What are the most important laws to be learned?
Yes, sir.
So unless you learn it, how can you be aware of it?
Yes, sir. So that is again a paradox. This is the ideal. What you said is definitely the ideal situation whereby you shouldn't be asking a person, and I definitely can relate to a person who, say a person who's living on the footpaths of India. To expect him to know the laws of India, that's not fair. But from the point of view of the law, we cannot work in any other way, sir, because if we take a fact-to-fact basis, it will only drag on cases. We have to look at the overall efficiency of administration, and in that respect, we cannot presume that a person who is not aware of the law must be excused. And the interesting thing is that even if it is a foreign law, I believe that you are still, with respect to foreign law, I think you have an excuse, but with respect to a law that is passed in India, you are expected to be aware of it.
Now, one last question.
Yes.
You come out as a very strong-willed lawyer who is out to mend ways and serve people. Do you think you would be cut to size when you enter services, considering your present ideals?
So I think,
or how do you cope with it if that thing happens?
So I think the best thing about getting a legal education is you have a guideline, a set of guidelines and a structure to go about your principles and your ideals. And I think that will serve me right and serve me well in an administrative setup. And if at all it is met with resistance, I think it depends on facts, and it depends on what kind of pressures comes. And in the end of the day, I would try to remember that the reason why I'm in service is to serve the people. And as long as you stand within the purview of law, as long as you follow the rules, I think we should harmoniously try to move forward.
All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Recently, a survey report by National Family Health Mission came out, and some very startling ideas were put forward by the proponents of that survey, that a significant percentage of females in Kerala have a positive attitude towards domestic violence by husbands, and a couple of situations were also mentioned. What is your comment on this survey report? Is it due to lack of empowerment of women, or is it because of the respect to the marriage institution which they harbor?
So I think it is a misconstrued belief of. So to answer it differently, I think I should involve the element of benevolent patriarchy again, because this is a case where this is a society where women are educated, women have jobs, women are financially independent, but they still believe that domestic violence, they think of it as domestic disciplining. So this kind of misconstrued idea of family love, I think that points towards the lack of translation of education into wisdom. And women are not aware of it. Women are not aware that they're being subjected to domestic violence. I think that's a case of benevolent patriarchy that has been instilled in the women, whereby they, without being aware, they go from the protection of the father to the husband to the son. So it's the lack of translation of education to empowerment and wisdom in its true sense.
Again, a contrasting finding is that in the family courts of Kerala,
Yes.
55,000 cases are pending with regards to marital discord. There is in stark contrast to this finding that many females actually have a positive attitude towards domestic violence, and in many of these cases which have been filed in the family courts, domestic violence is a very important complaint also. And this 55,000 cases is more than double that of the second highest number of complaints, that is from a large North Indian state. How do you explain this paradox or this conflicting data?
So I think the reason for increasing the number of cases is not because of the increase in violence as such. I think it is because more women are willing to come, more women are being aware of their rights, more women are being willing to go to the court and claim their rights. But I think it is a different section of the society that does not perceive perceives domestic violence as domestic disciplining. I do not think that this is an overlapping set of society as such.
Be a totally different set.
Yes, it has to be, because it's contradicting data.
Okay. Now you are aware of the POCSO Act, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Protection of Children Against Sexual Offences Act. One of the biggest practical difficulties in implementation of this act, especially faced by school teachers and school councillors in our state, is that they have identified many cases of students being sexually abused,
Yes.
especially in their own households.
Yes, yes.
They have reported it to the police. Following this reporting, there has been stiff resistance from the community. From this child's own household, there have been mothers coming and arguing with these teachers and arguing with these councillors that we have done a big damaging thing to our child and our family. Political pressure, social pressure of various dimensions come. And there has been discussion in the community that this teacher and councillor, by reporting this crime, they have done something very heinous, even more heinous than the crime. And unable to withstand this pressure, many school councillors
Yes.
have resigned their job, many others are contemplating resignation.
Yes.
What is the practical solution to that?
So I think this boils down to the stigma. I think it is because people still view sexual offences, being subjected to the sexual offences, being a victim is being looked down upon as if it is something of your fault, as if you are part of the problem. So this kind of mentality is the reason why parents who are caretakers and who want the best for their children, they are coming, and if they are questioning it, I do not think it's because they do not care about their children. It's because they have a very twisted perspective of what is best for their child. So I believe that the best way would be to alter the mindset.
How? Any practical suggestions?
So I think it should be more open. The question of discussing about sexual behavior when it comes to the Indian society, there is an unspoken stigma, an unspoken taboo about speaking about it freely. Whether it is between kids, like whether it is between different genders, a man and a woman, or between elders and youngsters, there is an unspoken code about how much can you speak about it. And that is one reason why such things are easy to be perpetrated, and I think it should be made more open. I think it should be made more accessible for the students to, for the children to speak to their parents, or for women to speak to men, or in all social contexts. To make it more accessible should take away the stigma, and that should be the primary step. And other than that, if there is a particular area that or a particular case, we can call them for counseling, sir, and we can actually make sure that we tell them that it's only in the best interest of the child that we pursue this.
Okay, adding on to the questions about adultery and
Yes, sir.
Article IPC 377, there has been some hue and cry from pedophilic activists also. They want to expand the LGBT to LGBTP, and at least some of them say that any pedophilia, just like homosexuality, is a biological construct with genetic correlations. Certain people are born like that. So there is absolutely nothing wrong in them having a sexual intercourse or a sexual act with a child who is a consenting child. What is your position about legalizing this pedophilic sexual activity?
So I wouldn't be inclined to agree with you on that statement. That is because there is a reason why we call a child a child. That is because he does not have the maturity or the exposure or the cognitive faculty that is developed enough as much as an adult to decide what is right for him or not. There is a reason why we still say that up till 18 years, the parents need to guide him through things. So his consent, the question is whether how far is consent a consent when a child gives a consent, sir. So in that sense,
But at least in certain Western societies,
yes.
students, adolescents start dating in their early adolescent age itself. They do have physical relationships. So again, there is a criticism that this 18 years as the age for consent is again a vestige of the colonial age. What is your comment on that?
So I am not an expert in that, but I still feel that up until 18 years, you're still gathering your moorings in the society. You're still exposed to new ideas. You're still formulating your opinions, and your personality is still developing. So in that stage, I think a position like sexual freedom, that's I think it's too early for that. And there is an age.
In India, probably even 25 or 30 years is pretty slow. People don't mature even till that age.
Can you name at least 3 writers in Malayalam who had worked in the administrative service? You don't remember 3, even 1 is enough. IAS holders who have been writers.
So I haven't read about any works of his, but I think
One name is enough, absolutely.
Sri
Someone
Alexander
from
Jacob.
the legal background,
Legal
who went
background
on
itself.
to judiciary and then came to IAS.
So I think you have a legal background and you came to IAS.
No.
I'm not.
The very
But has
famous.
he made his mark in writing as in major writing? But this
One of the
gentleman
famous
whom he was
writers in
mentioning was a
Malayalam.
magistrate
He
also.
was a magistrate, then came into the IAS. There was a special recruitment post-war.
Okay.
Heard of this novel called Yandram?
Unfortunately.
Not much of an
What's the
inclination
movie
or
called
language.
Iyer the Great?
No, sir, I haven't.
Malayatu Ramakrishnan. Okay. And one more last question. We
Yes,
have received a certificate of leadership from the National Entrepreneurship Network.
Yes, sir.
What is your concept about an ideal leader? What are the qualities for an ideal leader?
So I think an ideal leader is somebody who leads from behind. And if in case something goes wrong and you come up to the front and take the responsibility. I think a person who can lead from behind would be the ideal leader.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
The interview is over. Kindly wait outside. We'll discuss among ourselves, then call you back
Thank you
and
so
discuss your interview and see what should be done
Yes, sir.
for the. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
ഹലോ നിരഞ്ജന, വെൽക്കം ബാക്ക്. ഞങ്ങൾ കുറേ നേരമായിട്ട് നിരഞ്ജന ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂ കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് വരാനായിട്ട് കാത്തിരിക്കുകയാണ്. സോ ഹൗ ഡിഡ് ഇറ്റ് ഗോ? എങ്ങനെ പോയി?
It was a wonderful experience. The board was very cordial, and I would say one of the best mock interviews I've given. Like with respect to the inputs, the kind of questions they asked. I was
Okay.
quizzed on law mostly.
ഓക്കെ.
So it was a great experience.
സോ നിരഞ്ജന പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്ത് തന്നെയാണോ ഇവിടെ ചോദിച്ച ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്?
ഒട്ടുമല്ല
ഒട്ടുമല്ല.
പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്ത രീതിയിൽ ആ ഒരു ലൈൻ ആയിരുന്നില്ല. ഇറ്റ് വാസ് വെരി innovative. Like questions, current affairs mix ആയിട്ടും എൻ്റെ ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ട് മിക്സ് ആയിട്ടും എല്ലാ രീതിയിലും കൂടി ഒരു പിന്നെ ഒരു അഡ്മിനിസ്ട്രേറ്റീവ് പോയിന്റ് ഓഫ് വ്യൂ അല്ലേ ആ മൂന്നെണ്ണം കൂടി കോർഡിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ള ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ആയിരുന്നു. സോ couldn't have predicted it.
Okay, so how do you feel you have performed? അതായത് like suppose to rate you from 1 to 10, സ്വന്തമായിട്ട് എത്ര മാർക്ക് കൊടുക്കും?
I wouldn't rate myself. I think much more like eligible people.
No, you have an idea of how you have performed. So maybe you can just for the fun of it.
Maybe I would give myself a 6.
6, okay. I predicted that. Okay. അപ്പോൾ എന്തായാലും നമുക്ക് റിവ്യൂ കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് നമുക്ക് നോക്കാം പാനൽ എന്ത് പറയുന്നു. Okay?
Yes.
Devaki, your performance has been excellent.
Thank you, sir.
A lot of good things to say about you. The most brilliant aspect of your performance has been you were able to initiate and sustain a smooth conversation till the end of the interview. That's an excellent quality. And most of what you spoke had very good stuff in it. You are not just beating about the bush. The only glitch which happened was one question which was asked regarding the civil servant, whether he has to exhibit any restraint in posting in social media.
Yes, sir.
I think you did not get the question first and answered it as if it is applicable to the common man. So a little bit more of careful listening would help.
Yes.
It would be better if you can listen completely to the question, take a few seconds and reflect on what you want to speak and then speak.
Yes.
That would help to avoid such problems. Other than that, the performance was excellent. You don't need to know everything in the legal statute also. Absolutely, that is not the purpose of this personality assessment. Whatever you know, are you able to put it across convincingly? Are you able to logically reason for every question that you have been asked? You are able to do. It was really difficult questions which are asked by most of the members in this panel, but you managed to answer most of them wonderfully well. It was a wonderful performance and I don't see any reason why you shouldn't crack it this time. All the best.
Thank you so much, sir.
I don't have anything to say. I enjoyed talking to you. You were extremely fluent and you seem to be knowing much about law, the subject of your study. And all the questions that were posed to you, you did come out with good answers. But if I am to suggest one or if I am to cite one defect, that would be, I was wondering whether you are talking a bit too much. Now, whether you have to be as substantive as you had been.
Yes.
You know, if that is, if I am to post one defect against you, that would be the only one.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
I found that the best part of the way you address this interview, your strength is that you are very fluent and your body language you are able to take along with your fluency. So maintain it. There's nothing wrong there. Just be a little more short and your command over your subject is commendable. And we really quizzed you very hard on law. No board would quiz you this much on extremely intricate aspects of our working of our penal law and our constitution. But you fared very well. I'm quite impressed. The best.
Thank you.
But the only thing which you should keep in mind is probably the real board may not spend so much time on law.
Yes.
There are other aspects of your personality as well which they might want to know. But law, of course, having a strong background in law helps. Just minor things like law of tort, I think, you know, it's not that it's not important. It's just that in India, the litigation community has not really taken up law of tort as seriously as it could be. It's still developing. Probably that's the only difference, or only I wouldn't say wrong, but then slightly different stand, which is more correct.
Finally, my advice would be that, as pointed out by him, you have not been quizzed on other subjects which would attract the attention of the board, because they won't spend all the time on law.
Yes, sir.
And therefore, whatever you have filled in here, you should prepare yourself to answer questions as fluently as you have done on law before us. So that is the only care that you need to take, so that you are not caught on the wrong foot.
Yes, sir.
Assuming that they will also quiz you only on law.
Yes, sir.
Okay. with that, I think you, as all of us agree, you have done very well. So we expect you to do equally well and get into the service that you want.
Yes, sir. I hope so too, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a great experience. Thank you.
So Niranjana, you're back after the review. എന്ത് പറഞ്ഞു panel?
The panel gave a favorable feedback.
Okay.
ചില കറക്ഷൻസ് പറഞ്ഞു തന്നിട്ടുണ്ട് പക്ഷേ ഓവറോൾ ദേ വെർ ഹാപ്പി ഐ ബിലീവ്.
ഓക്കെ, സോ വാട്ട് വർ ദ കറക്ഷൻസ് എന്താണ് പറഞ്ഞത്?
ചില ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്, ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ഞാൻ ശരിയായിട്ട് കേട്ടില്ലായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ അത് എൻഡ് ആയപ്പോഴാണ് എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായത് ഈ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ഞാൻ മാറിയാണ് ആൻസർ ചെയ്യുന്നതെന്ന്. അപ്പോൾ പറഞ്ഞു കുറച്ചുകൂടി ലിസൺ ചെയ്യാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. പിന്നെ കുറച്ച് ഇത്ര ഇലാബറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാതെ കുറച്ചുകൂടി ക്രിസ്പായിട്ട് കുറച്ചുകൂടി ഷോർട്ടാക്കി പറയാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. കാരണം ശരിക്കുള്ള ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂവിൽ 40-45 മിനിറ്റ്സേ സമയം കിട്ടും. അപ്പം ഇത് അവർ പറഞ്ഞു ലിബറലായിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനെ ലോയൽ ഇങ്ങനെ ക്വിസ് ചെയ്താണ് ലെങ്ത് കൂടിയത്. അപ്പം കുറച്ചുകൂടി ഷോർട്ടാക്കി ബ്രൈവിറ്റി കൊണ്ടുവരാൻ പറഞ്ഞു.
ഓക്കെ, ഫൈൻ. സോ ഇന്ന് കിട്ടിയ പോയിന്റ്സും ടിപ്സും ഒക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ട് പ്രിപ്പയർ വെരി വെൽ ഫോർ യുവർ ഫൈനൽ ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂ. സോ ഓൾ ദി ബെസ്റ്റ് അഗൈൻ.
താങ്ക് യു സോ മച്ച് അശ്വതി.
മറ്റൊരു സിവിൽ സർവീസ് ആസ്പിരൻറ്റുമായി 1 in Million എന്ന ഈ പരിപാടി വീണ്ടും നിങ്ങളുടെ മുന്നിൽ എത്തുന്നതാണ്. നമസ്കാരം.